there is another side to this story, and that is Phoenix. I mean, Phoenix, Kev. I mean, let's just face it. I mean, this was an utter collapse from the Suns in Game Seven. They were up 3-2 in this series after winning Game Five at home. You know, they had 2 games to close it out. Lost Game Six on the road to Dallas, and then this Game Seven is probably, like I said earlier, one of the most shocking. Uh, I guess you would say it as an upset, or really just kind of like just a shocking result altogether, based on losing at home by 33 points. I mean, we even saw the score get up into the mid 40s, like as far as the deficit was when it came to the Suns in this Game 7. I mean, Chris Paul and Devin Booker, they didn't hit a shot in the first half. The Suns scored 27 points as a team in the first 2 quarters, which is almost unheard of when it comes to the Suns, just because they were the best team in the NBA this season. They were the number 1 seed in the West for a reason. And their season comes to a crashing halt in the second round of the Western Conference playoffs. And that's where I'm going to kind of pose this question to you, is just how shocking was this Game 7 defeat with the Suns losing by 33 points at home?
Probably one of the most shocking things I've ever seen in sports, just because you take their record aside, the personnel that they have, the team that they have, the coaching staff that they have, you don't expect them to be inefficient. You don't expect Chris Paul to be inconsistent as he has been over the last 3 or 4 games. You don't expect Devin Booker to go as cold as he did. And that list just kind of goes on of I was just sitting there in absolute shock first and foremost that Phoenix just came out there and they couldn't hit the front side of a damn barn. It was just shot after shot. It looked impossible, and it just continued throughout the entire game. And to look at Devin Booker and be like, "Wait a minute, he's what?" Like, he ended 3 of 14. Chris Paul, we found a way to make him tired and work him on the other side, just like I said again a couple minutes ago. Um, they were really focalizing, and by they I mean Phoenix, to make Luka work and get Luka tired. Dallas legitimately repeated that strategy and just legitimately said, you know what? If you're going to tire out our best player, we're going to make sure that we take advantage of Chris Paul on the other side as well. And for that, that's kind of where it went. And Phoenix was just completely incapable of moving the ball offensively to a point where they were able to create space. They had some untimely turnovers at certain situations during the game. And then you go and you look at it and you say, when your 2 best players can't get into a rhythm, how do you expect the rest of the team to follow suit? So it's it's kind of crazy when you think they were the number 1 seed because they sure shit didn't play like it. Um, for them to score 27 total points in that half just goes to show our defense was able to be swarming and consistent all around the ball wherever they could be. But as a number 1 seed to lose at home the way that it did, it almost got away from. Well, it did get away from you. Obviously, you lost by 30 something. To almost get 50 piece on your own floor, it's embarrassing. I've never seen it before. I'll be the first to admit Dallas lost to the Warriors, that we believe team, and I think 2007, the year after we lost to the Heat in the finals. And we got embarrassed a lot, but never like this. I mean, granted, we lost the series in 6, and I think we were the first 1 seed to ever lose, or at least lose to an 8 seed in the first round. But to go out there and just absolutely shit the bed in Game 7 at home, it didn't happen. We also didn't get the opportunity to lose at home because Golden State actually kicked our ass. But I don't know, man. I don't know if this is mentally something that Devin and Chris weren't able to shake. I don't know if this was overconfidence. I don't know if this was just, quite frankly, Dallas came into this game wanting it more. The narrative is going to say Phoenix shit themselves. Phoenix, just they couldn't handle the pressure. And it's funny and yet super weird because they went to the finals last year. Like, this is pretty much the exact same team, and they couldn't get out of the second round of Dallas. Like, you really couldn't figure out a way to beat them, knowing that you just absolutely smacked them every time they were on your home floor. So I mean, Kyle, I'm kind of like double asking you. Do you think they gave up? Like, it looked like they had no fight left in them at halftime, and I'm not saying that's what happened, but that's what it looked like from my side. They just looked flat.
I mean, Kevin, I mean, the way that I saw it is they were just getting outmatched. And the thing that really kind of shocked me about the Suns in the first half was, dude, they couldn't knock down a shot. I mean, 27 points in the first half. I mean, it's one thing to score 27 points in a quarter. I mean, honestly, if you score 25 to like 27, 28 points in a quarter, that's a typical output that you see from teams in one quarter, but not in a half. And that was really like the most striking thing about the whole thing is that Luka essentially tied Phoenix's entire first half output by himself. And it was
which
kind
is
of similar to,
nuts.
it's similar to what I said earlier. I mean, I remember I was watching this game on Gamecast on the ESPN app, and I saw it's a 30-point ass whooping at halftime. And in my head, it's like the game's over. Like there's no way that Phoenix is going to be able to come back from this. Granted, I know that Phoenix has been a better second half team against the Mavs throughout this entire series, but 30 points, you can't come back from that. Even if you are at home, just there's no energy. There's no motivation to really get back into it just because they couldn't get anything going. And when I look at this series as a whole, it's just an utter collapse as far as I'm concerned. I mean, like Kevin had said earlier, I mean, the Mavs were down 0-2 to start this series. And, the Mavs kind of regrouped after, those first two away games by winning both of their home games in games 3 and 4. And then the way that I kind of saw this series playing out is that Phoenix was going to win this series in 6 games because I thought that they would win game 5, which they did. And then I thought that they would win game 6 on the road against Dallas. Dallas ended up winning game 6 at home. And then I surely thought that the Suns were going to win this game 7 just simply because when you looked at all of the home games that they had throughout this series up to this point, I mean, Kevin, you could say this pretty easily. I mean, the Mavs were getting smoked on the road. Not like, oh, it was like relatively close and, they had a fight. No, like the Suns dominated them by and large in the second half of most of those home games. And and Dallas really had no answer for it until game 7. And looking from the Suns' perspective, I mean, you're going into a game 7 and the result is the team shoots 38% from the field. They shoot 35% behind the 3-point line. And they essentially score 50 points in 3 quarters of play until they hit the fourth quarter where all that was garbage points anyway. I mean, 50 points in 3 quarters. I know Monty Williams won Coach of the Year. He's in a situation where guys are just not knocking down shots. No matter what, like he sets up for plays, no matter what he kind of throws against Dallas, guys are not hitting their shots. There's nothing you can do. And it's not like the Suns had like an exorbitant amount of turnovers. They only had 12 turnovers in this game. Dallas only had 11. So this wasn't really a game where both teams, or even the Suns for that matter, were really turning the ball over at will. It was not the case. I mean, honestly, 3 turnovers a quarter for an average, it's not that bad, looking at it from the Suns' perspective. But, I mean, for the number 1 seed to lose in this manner, to essentially get mollywopped on your home court by, at one point, I think the lead was up into the mid-40s. It's just utterly embarrassing. And granted, the Suns are a great team. I mean, they won 60-plus games for a reason. I mean, the chemistry that all of these guys had, I mean, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder. And then you can look at some of the role players like Cameron Johnson, Cameron Payne, and Bismack Biyombo and JaVale McGee. Like, these guys can play. Like, these guys have stepped up and have been consistent the entire year. But in this game 7, man, they just could not buy a shot. I've never seen a 1 seed in a game 7 just utterly collapse like this to the point where the game was over. You could honestly say the game was over halfway through the second quarter. Because I remember I was watching the game on Gamecast. It was a 20 point plus lead. With like 5 to 6 minutes left to go in the first half. And I'm just sitting here like, I don't know how Phoenix is going to get it back. I thought that Phoenix would have made some sort of show, or at least made some sort of effort to get back into the game into the third quarter. But Dallas was just consistent. Spencer was knocking down shots. Luka was knocking down shots. Jalen was knocking down shots. It's just that Phoenix just couldn't match it. And the way that I see it, you know, I think Phoenix can bounce back from this, but man, this is a gut punch. There's no other way to say it. I mean, this team had finals aspirations. This team went to the finals last year. They pretty much, like Kevin said, had the same roster going into this year. They had a great regular season, and it just comes to a crashing halt. It's just one of the most shocking results I've ever seen in a game seven. There have been some great game sevens that we've seen that have been back and forth, and that was kind of what we were thinking was going to be taking place in this game, and it was utterly the opposite. And that's really, I think, the most shocking part of the whole thing is that this game was a blowout, and the home team just got absolutely destroyed. I mean, it looked like the arena was basically empty with just a couple minutes left in the fourth quarter. I mean, game was over. And if you're the Suns, I think they'll be able to bounce back from this. But man, this one's gonna sting. And there's no other way to say it other than that. This one is gonna sting.